for those of you joining us today. Thank you for watching the Woburn Spotlight. I'm your host, Tyler Gates, here to bring you some positivity by talking to those around town making big strides for the greater good. Today I'm fortunate to have with me Tom O'Hare, college financial admissions counselor, essentially. Did I butcher the title?
No, that's good.
From
That's
Get
good.
College Going.
Get College Going.
I knew the name. Tom, please, for the sake of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
What I do is I try to provide an independent approach to college advising, helping people with the whole nature of admissions, financial aid, trying to determine what path one might want to follow after high school to receive their education and launch their career and get themselves into a financial place that they're happy with.
There's probably a lot that goes into that. I can't imagine that's a one-size-fits-all package. How do you get to know who you're working with or your clients? Where are you meeting people?
Well, meeting them in all places, whether it's networking groups like we're involved in, or doing some seminars or workshops, or even in the back of church when someone's walking out and they look pretty stressed and got anxiety rolling in their eyes. Yeah. So it's some of my best customers are my referrals from others that I've worked with, and you know that from your business. But looking for individuals or trying to get individuals that might be feeling the pain of navigating the college admissions process.
I know a little bit about your process, but for those that don't, what age group would this make the most sense? Who do you help, and who's the right fit for your services and vice versa? Yeah,
individuals, parents are my primary individual. Grandparents make a good conversation, have a great interest in their children and their grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So they're very much involved in the picture of helping individuals, helping their kids go to college. I think it's someone who is a junior in high school, a senior in high school. In some cases, it's an individual who has got out of school, they're graduated from high school, and they're still trying to figure it out.
What's next?
What's next, whether they want to get involved in school, part-time or full-time. But it's the typical parent in the high school process, sometimes sophomore parents, and they're a very good individual to have an initial conversation with, because one of my approaches is all about finding out how much you can afford before you go shopping.
The other way around might be challenging, eh?
Well, the other way around is the historic way.
Yeah.
It's been used by years, and it can be successful for some.
Sure.
But what happens is individual students fall in love with schools, and sometimes they can get in, but they can't necessarily pay for it. And that's a tough thing, and that's where debt comes from. A lot of the debt that's out there in the education world that you hear about, the $1 trillion student loan debt, comes from individuals who can't afford. They take out private loans, and that sometimes works against them. So the idea of finding out what makes the right sweet spot for a student, based on their academic and personal development and what the family has from resources, that's a great start of a conversation.
Now, you mentioned early on that parent that looks stressed. I think there's definitely a certain level of stress that the parents carry with them. On the same side, college admissions can be overwhelming at times for the student. How are you working with these families to help mitigate some of the stress levels on both parties?
Well, I call it my co-parenting role.
Okay.
That's
Please elaborate.
A phrase that I've started, that I've been using as a parent myself of 4 of my own children who have gone through the process and are college graduates and are now out in the workplace in various ways. My approach is to try to partner with them to try to provide that guiding light, that opportunity for them to have someone who has been in the process, who's felt the stress himself, and whose children have felt the stress themselves. As I say to students when I talk to them, can you imagine you being one of my children? And I've been in the business for 30 years and have recently started doing this, and my 10.5 shoe against my own kids can be tough. So helping know what the questions are, know what some of the answers might be or should be, and become that co-parent to try to provide the student with a sense of opportunity to talk to someone. Sometimes they don't want to talk to their parents. They have a different approach. They have a different idea. Mom and dad have a different idea. So there's that mediation that is part of the process too, which is a great opportunity to be involved in.
I'm sure that takes a level of that stress off their plate, at least over time.
Yeah, I mean, we use the word peace of mind, the phrase peace of mind, and sometimes it's used too much, but I think there's a peace of mind when you can call someone at 7 o'clock at night and have a conversation, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and have a conversation when the stress has really mounted itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Those phone calls need to happen at that. There's an influx or a point in time, I think, that it becomes overwhelming and they need to pick up the phone and call. I find that with my clients at least.
Yeah, and they come home from work, they've been worried about it at work, they come home from work,
Still thinking
it's
about
right
it.
there in front of them, now they have to do something about it. How do you deal with it? And the opportunity to call someone and have a conversation, ask them questions, and continue, for those that I work with, to continue to follow the path of their college plan, which is something I build for the student, then they have some direction. And they're in control. And that minimizes some of the stress.
I believe it was you that said there was two sides of the college process, admission and paying for it. Do you feel as though both deserve equal attention, or do you put emphasis on one or the other?
Both need equal attention. Some need more at certain times. So the traditional process right now has always been a student is a junior, starts the process of searching and looking for schools. I call it the falling in love stage, where they start looking for schools. And generally in the past, there's been more of an emphasis in January or February of a senior year for families to start looking at the financial side, how we're going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been some movement in the past couple of years with the forms being available, the FAFSA that everybody knows and loves or hates, being moved into October so the families can start learning about what their ability is to pay. I think that it's very important, just like a mortgage, just like a car loan, just like redoing your home, to get pre-approved. To find out ahead of time how much you can afford, what your resources are, and what your buying power is going to be from that. Some may have more money and can afford to send their child to a school that's expensive if the student gets in. Some may not have that money and might rely on financial aid, or presenting their student to a school that's more inclined to give them money because they're looking for that student, but not knowing how much you can afford up front puts you at behind the scenes. But the admissions process moves along with it. So when you know what you can afford, then in essence you go shopping looking for schools that might be a little bit above your reach, where you might also be better than the average, and you start looking at who's going to give you more money as part of the process of being recruited or finding your institution. Because generally speaking, there's probably about 3 industries where when you go for your first job, do they actually want to know what your grades are? Most just want to know what your diploma is in, what your major was, what schools you went to. So we've had some examples of chasing the wrong dreams with the Varsity Blues scandal, and we need to look at that from the standpoint of what does it mean for students, from the perspective of finding a school that meets their academic and personal profile and families can pay for.
I find that families don't necessarily know how to wrap their head around what they can afford. Do you take them through that journey?
Yeah, in the first couple meetings, I'm the co-parent that's exposing them to what they may have for resources. Maybe they're coming from you with the information that they already know that what their resources are. Then we're going to do some financial calculations as if they were applying for financial aid with the schools.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to do their financial aid form in a draft form.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go out and do some net price calculations with the schools that might be in their ballpark to see Johnny's grades and profile equals this, the school might give them that, and then what the difference might be.
Okay.
And working in tandem with folks like you, they know what their resources are or don't have for resources.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might know that, wait a minute, we don't have the right mix. And going to community college to get it going with a bounce to a 4-year school to finish your degree is an enormously affordable and life-changing event for individuals. And then there's those that we need every day. When my wife says, get your tool belt out, she starts calling the plumber, the electrician, the carpenter. We need those individuals too. So there's a lot of paths to school after high school that I like to make sure that families are exposing themselves to.
I won't spoil it too much, so we'll let the families see it for themselves. But I really appreciated that the 4 points, the little diagram that you shared with me, kind of the different quadrants that you may end up fitting in based on some of your academic achievements, abilities, cost, needs, things like that. I thought that was eye-opening. Certainly was.
Good, good. It's a tough conversation.
Sure.
All right.
Maybe the first time, and maybe people know and they don't want to have that conversation at times as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the reality is a student, quote unquote, can go to any school that they can get accepted to. With the private loan programs and resources like that, you can go to a school that you can get into. But depending upon where you are in the academic belt and the academic profile, you know, there are many students who can get into school and they're not ready for it. And I don't want to work with a student, I don't want to see a student go to school with the hope of being able to graduate and drop out in the first year. Because maybe there was another school that fits their profile, that fits their academics as well as the family's financials, that they're going to be successful. They're going to graduate in 4 years, they're going to get a job, they're going to start working and move themselves through their career. So the attempt of using that chart to show where people might be in the savings in academic achievement is a tough conversation to have, but it does present a good profile for people to be thinking about.
What are some, I think like the golden question nowadays is why you, why your services? So I'll reiterate that in a different way. Why would parents that are sitting down with you for the first time, I'm sure they ask, what can you do for us, right? What's in it for me? How do you kind of explain that side of
the million dollar question.
It is the million dollar
question. What can an advisor do? Well, beyond the scope of peace of mind, beyond the scope of working with someone who knows what the process is like, all right? Because as much as I read my psychology today, the articles about stress are very much written about the fact that when you can manage your process, when you can manage your life, then you can reduce your stress. So one of the things I bring to the table is experience. Process experience, the ability to say, this is what's going to happen over the next 18 to 24 months. Mom, this is the experience that your son and daughter are going to have. This is the pushback your son and daughter is going to have. This is the reality that they won't be listening to everything you say, but you need to keep the ball rolling. And the opportunity to be available when they need someone. Guidance counselors, school counselors do a great job. They're inundated with a lot of responsibilities. Their day ends, and parents are still alive, still working, still moving forward, and then they're coming home. So accessibility is important. The other part that I think is what I hope is of value is to be able to be that one-on-one co-parent to work with the individual student. I don't keep a large client base, so I'm able to work one-on-one with individuals and be available.
That's great. And you stay involved even after the kid goes to college, if I remember right. Isn't that fair to say?
Very, very good. You were listening. Yeah, I have what I call my 13th year program.
I like this. I couldn't remember the name of it. 13th year program.
13th year. So when they go off to school,
yes,
they are involved in all kinds of things. As you remember when you went off to school.
whirlwind.
Whirlwind. An enormous amount of downtime. And if you're not feeling that downtime, then you can get distracted by other things. So I don't necessarily encourage students to take jobs in their first semester or maybe their first year, but get involved with clubs. So what I do during the 13th year is I check in on the students about 3 or 4 times during appropriate periods when they're going to be engaging their parents or possibly engaging their parents to check in on seeing how they're doing academically, emotionally, health-wise. Do you need to stop? Do you need to drop a class because it's just not what you want? Did you decide to become a certain major and now you don't want that major? And how are you going to have that conversation with mom and dad when you come home? Well, let's get it ready. Let's prepare for it. You know, if we need to crack a beer with mom and dad and have a good cordial, then let's do that. So that you can transfer within the school to another major that's going to make you happy. You know, engineering is an enormously difficult program. And a lot of students want to be engineers. I want to make sure that they're going to go to a school or help them find a school that has a strong engineering program, But if I find by being their co-parent along the way, they're not 100% going to be an engineer major, then it's got to be something that they can fall back on and not have to transfer out of the school.
Fair.
Okay. So the 13th year program also helps the parents because I'm going to convey the information that I learned from their
transferred,
students.
and I think that was the scariest conversation I ever had to have was with my folks about, you know, making a change.
Yeah, but the thing is, most parents just want one thing.
Yeah.
Their kid to be happy.
Really?
And their kid to be successful. And how can we do it? And as I usually say to parents, don't listen in the grocery store line to the people in front of you or behind you and get all stressed out about it, because who knows what's going on in those families.
Yeah.
You know?
Some good tips. Let's talk about pitfalls. Are there any tips that you would leave with people that are thinking about having this first initial conversation, or any four-letter words that you might tell students or parents to stay away from when they're talking about college? Or just do you know where I'm going with this? Any obstacles that you're seeing on a high level?
Well, obstacles might be chasing schools that you're not ready for.
Okay.
All right, and that's a hard thing to face. Right. By that I mean, if the average enrollment at a school is 4.0 and you're a 3.5 and you can get in, but you can't necessarily keep up with the 4.0 rigor, why not find a school where your 3.5 puts you the head of the class, and now you're going to be able to set the pace for the rigor, and everybody in the school is going to know you and be able to work with you. So it's having some of those frank conversations as I analyze a student and where they are and their motivation to go to school and their ability to go to school. I think the other pitfall is debt. It's everybody wants their kids to go to, you know, the Ivy Leagues and the big schools, and sometimes that's with a cost, because those schools don't have to give anybody any money. There's no reason why they have to give you any money, because they have more people applying for the seats that they have, so that they can cherry pick who needs money, and those students probably need it the most and should get it at the highest level, their families. So other students are paying at a higher degree for a cost and a program that they might be able to get at a different institution. And the idea of being the one that probably brings that to the table in the first or couple conversations, I feel good about myself, because at least I'm being that advisor that's honest and looking at things from a holistic standpoint, not just the immediacy of let's get into school.
I think that gives us a good opportunity to share your information. So Tom, I'm going to give you a moment. Please share whatever way is best to get a hold of you, whether that be your website, an email, a phone number. Please feel free to just say it. Now we will also have it thrown up on the screen for you as well.
Those are the classic three.
Those are the classic three. Please share them with us.
Best for me is my telephone number, 617-240-7350. Email tom@getcollegegoing.com, and my website is getcollegegoing.com.
And if I ever forget, I got my handy dandy pen to be able to give to my clients or friends that may need your services. So please, before we close our time together today, please, I'd love just to hear kind of an executive summary of the journey from start to kind of finish, 30,000-foot flyover of how you would help somebody if they gave you a call today.
The first thing I'd do is sit down and would have a very frank, honest conversation about what's going on in the family as to where they are in the process. I'm going to give them some recommendations and advice as to how I can help them. And if they want to, and they need a co-partner, parent like me, then we're going to develop a specific 18 to 24 month plan with all the bells and whistles that go with what you need to be doing, what you need to be thinking about, deadlines, tasks, responsibilities, where to put the pressure on your student, where to put the pressure on yourself as a parent, so that come September, October, November of the senior year, there's no stress. There's a lot of happiness. And we get the applications submitted and we wait for the acceptances. That's the process.
That's the process.
That's the process.
In 2020, you have some, I think, great goals of expanding into local businesses to help support parents that are stressed about this at work.
Yeah.
If there's any business that, you know, sees their families or people wearing this on their sleeve, would that be a good opportunity to give you a call as well?
Excellent opportunity. We've talked about that the days of coming home after work and having a quick supper and getting back out to go to a presentation to listen about this, it's
Almost impossible.
almost
nowadays.
impossible. So the idea of, a business leader or an HR director or a manager having a staff member who might be suffering from a little absenteeism, a little bit of lapse in work, the question might be, do you have any kids in college?
Mm-hmm.
Have any kids in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe your stress level needs to be addressed, and if I can come in during the day to answer questions, to help individuals.
Get them back to work and being productive on company time.
Yep. And from a company that's trying to recruit individuals and keep individuals and have, an edge against someone else, having that as part of their voluntary benefit program is a great thing for them, because they're extending value, they're showing value in their employees by having a program available to them that they can take advantage during the day to help resolve some of their problems so they can stay focused on the company. That's a good combination.
It's a great combination. Tom, thank you for joining us today.
Hey.
I know planning for college can be a stress for those that I've worked with, and so I see absolutely the value of being a co-partner or a co-parent in this process. So we'll have to have you back on and to talk again about the process again and what has changed along the way, because I'm sure a lot changes in the financial aid world.
Changes every day, changes every year. So I truly thank you for inviting me in and giving me an opportunity to answer some questions and share some information.
My pleasure, Tom. Thanks.
Thanks.
And thank you for all. We're watching today's show with Tom O'Hare at Get College Going. Remember, I'm your host, Tyler Gates. We all have one life to live. Let's all do our part. Join us again for another episode of the Woburn Spotlight.